Yair Adato, CEO of Bria.ai. Welcome to the Insight Jam.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you wrote in your LinkedIn bio that you created Bria with the vision for a responsible and open platform for visual generative AI. Bria is pioneering responsible generative AI. Walk me through what is responsible generative AI.
And I'm pretty consistent in that message in the last 5 years. So I started 5 years ago, and I said that, look, guys, generative AI is going to come in, and it must be responsible, and it must be open. So let's take that one by one. At the end of the day, responsible, it means that you take accountability of the technology and the product that you build. I have twin girls, 15 years old. I hate TikTok. I don't want to be the one that create the next TikTok. I think that as the technology, and this is amazing technology, but as this technology is so amazing, it's so powerful, you need to think very carefully in advance how to implement that in a way that it will be responsible to society. And for me, responsible, it means to take accountability of what you do. More specifically, in the generative AI, we build a platform that respects copyright and privacy. Every single visual that we generate, we have on the trainings that we use in the training set, we have full license for that. So we didn't scrap the internet, we didn't steal data, we didn't have something for some data owner or artist. It's always fully licensed. There's no privacy element there. There's no privacy infringement. And you cannot create deepfake. You cannot create celebrities. So for me, this is the first step of creating a responsible AI a platform. There are more, bias and fairness and other elements of that. But to start with, respect copyright and privacy regulation.
Well, so and I think we've all seen that not everybody has played by those rules, and as a result, things get a little difficult when AI is in the generation of new things. I know you put in a post a few days ago about how Figma got into a little bit of a sticky wicket over some AI features where it was generating AI-powered designs that were beginning to look a little bit too similar to the Apple OS. And they needed to kind of shut things down. I mean, where do these large language models that have scraped the internet, where do they start to run into trouble?
Now, this day, I think that you see more and more lawsuits, you see more and more PR disaster. Scarlett Johansson, OpenAI Steal My Voice. Think of you as a big retailer in the state doing a huge project with OpenAI, and only after lunch discover that Scarlett Johansson excused you for stealing her voice. We see the music industry with the new lawsuits against several music startup, and I don't know if you're aware of that. They said 700 letters of you should not do that. But in a way, this is not new. It's happened in the past. When here is one example in music streaming. It started when some companies scrapped all of the music in the world, in movies and Hollywood, and then after a few years, people said it's not cool. It's not cool to steal from the artists and not pay for them. And then the economy involved, and then come new model, for example, Spotify, that you pay for the use of the visual. Now, it's created a new market. I think that it will happen here at the same way. This is, by the way, why I think that open is important, and I guess that we will talk about it in a second. But it's here, it's now, and you must have a solution in order to have a sustainable product and sustainable economy.
Well, and I want to talk about all these interesting difficulties and challenges that AI is starting to come across. But before that, I do want to dig in a little bit more on Bria. So Bria.ai, walk me through what it is and how it benefits an organization looking to stay out of any kind of copyright infringement issues with regard to visual generative AI.
So we develop a platform with an attribution engine. Let's call it a nano attribution engine. And every time that we generate an image, we know how to trace back in the training set which are the visuals that impact the most for this generation. And we pay royalty for them. We pay the attribution for them. So we split part of the revenue to license the data that's used for training on behalf of our client. And because of that, we don't have, with this nano attribution engine, we have agreement with all of the image stock provider, Getty Images and Envato and Alamy, Deposit Photo, all of them. So we got all of the visual with license, back to back. And we know how to pay for them when you will use that. Now, it's not only that we solve the privacy and the copyright, it's also very high quality repository, because this is what you use for marketing. So we get something which is really high quality. Now, the question is how you consume it. We offer to consume it as a web tool that you can use, but this is not the main goal. The main goal is to use it as an API or as a source code available. We give companies the ability, we give the code, so they can integrate that into their processes and product. Does it make sense to you?
It does. So how do you go to market then? Are you going direct to organizations, or are you trying to work with the third-party image providers? How do you go to market?
Yeah. So think about Publicis. It's a nice example. It's a huge organization. They have a lot of engineers. They have great AI team. They have several very techy organizations. Now they have a tool to create their own product and processes because they have access to this generative AI. And they create promotions, they create ads, they create marketing material. They also create some augmented reality solution out of it. But they can, because they have all the flexibility to use this AI. Think of a big gaming company that develop an engine for gaming. Now they can develop tools for the user to generate 3D assets, to generate scenes and world. This is how you're going to create content in general using AI going forward. And we give the tool. We are the enabler. We are the picks and shovel for this technology.
So this is all moving so fast. And I just saw, the latest revelation is real-time generative AI image creation with the idea of effectively real-time gaming happening. How do you stay ahead of it within stride of it? I mean, how do you run an organization just from a practical standpoint when there is just so much innovation happening and it's being driven in such a robust way with so much horsepower now from all the GPUs and all the possible outputs, not only still imagery, but real-time video?
This is a very good question, because this is by far the fastest evolving technology that I ever see. And this technology continue to surprise us that it's more quality than we thought it will be. It's like amazing. However, technology is only one aspect of it. And in order to have something really adopted by enterprise, you need to see the full picture. You need to solve regulation, and you need to solve compliance, and you need to solve the copyright and privacy issue. And you need to help them to adopt this technology, because it's not that simple. And right now we are in the top of the hype, and soon people will understand that it's not that simple to use it. So what we build is a solution for enterprise to help them adopt, transform their business in generative AI. We started with visual, but in the next 2 or 3 quarters, we will present also video, music, audio, and 3D, every type of asset that come with rights, and we will give them the tool, or we are giving them the tool to be in the game. Because if only OpenAI and Google have access to this technology, they will be very, very non-innovative world. So we give them the ability to stay in the game. It's a unique go-to-market, I think.
Well, I think it's absolutely. It makes all the sense in the world that you would come at it from that angle, because I have to believe that there is an incredible amount right now of trepidation within large organizations that can get into real compliance problems, and I'm sure the legal departments are on fire right now trying to prevent just kind of what you would expect, right? The kind of one-off, two-off use within the organization as as thinking they're doing the right thing by experimenting with some of this thing and landing in trouble. What is I think I understand your value proposition, but what is getting in the way right now for a large organization in terms of their thinking about generative AI?
So I think that having the legal compliant, the legal department happy is the first step. Then there is the second step of, okay, so now I can use it. What does it mean for my business? What does it mean for my business model? If I'm an ad agency and I used to sell something, one thing, now I need to sell something a little bit different. I need to involve an organization. It's hard for them to make this type of changes. So this is one thing. The second element, I think that the pricing structure, the model, are extremely naive, like extremely naive. We are all educated by NVIDIA and by AWS and by Microsoft, all great partners of us, amazing companies, of course, that the way to consume it, to pay for that, is per consumption. But I don't want to pay every time that I click a button of changing something in my web tool. This is not how I'm as a consumer pay. And you need to do this flip between consumption to flat fee or a per seat. And this is actually reflects something even more deeper in this technology, where we are still trying to understand as a community, where is the real value of generative AI? Where is the real value? And I will argue that the real value is not generating amazing visual of horses on the moon, even though it's amazing and cool. I just don't have nothing to do with it. And to start this discussion with the enterprise, how to implement that, where is the real value? What does it mean for the business? What does it mean for the cost structure, for the pricing model? It takes time. So it's a long answer, but you see all the things that you need to do in order to adopt this technology with enterprises.
Meanwhile, trying to stay at pace with what other organizations have already decided they're comfortable with, and are now fully adopting. I want to ask you about generative AI, kind of in theory. I have this loose, controversial view that all musicians are essentially neural networks. and to use an old reference, Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, listened to every blues record and as a neural network, basically listened to a whole host of music that came before him, absorbed it into his neural network, and then the output of every Rolling Stone song is a distillation of that. And isn't generative AI effectively behaving in a similar way, that it's not straight up copying, it's synthesizing patterns that it learned from previous work and generating those patterns in a new way to produce something similar and emotive and one would say, evocative of, similar to, classic rock and roll musicians or hip hop artists, or pick your poison. I mean, is that is that a copy? This is where I question whether or not what it's actually doing, whether or not we like that it does it through technology. What it's actually doing isn't actually copyright infringing. It's just doing what humans have been doing forever.
First of all, great question. Well articulate question. First of all, when the musician get inspired from all of the music, he buy this music. He go to a concert, he buy the ticket, he buy the album, he buy it to Spotify. First of all.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough.
Second, I like this question. Second, there are some philosophers will say that we are just very advanced algorithm, and there are some philosophers that will say that part of the reason that the world is moving this major shift is because of this data religion. I think that if you're familiar with Noah Harari, is one of the big voice of that. I will still argue that all of the musicians that I met, they have soul when they create the music, and I'm not ChatGPT. That's how.
That's not strong enough. But I understand what you're saying. They don't all have soul, by the way.
They have some level of, and that's funny. And I think that this is, you look at what ChatGPT creates. It's flat. It's average. It's a machine that can create boring content, and I think that we are going to be in a world of boring content. And the reason that it's not, this interview is interesting because you ask something new, and I think that this is another very important difference. Other than that, it's a tool. People will use that. It's a good tool. People will use that. It will help people to create more music and more content.
Well, you also, I saw a quote of yours which I thought was good, which is generative AI has reached its peak and it's now a race to the bottom. What did you mean by that?
I think that the general out of the box text to text, text to image is a race to the bottom. There's no value there. Again, it's the horses on the moon scenario. I have nothing to do with that. This is not what I'm selling. It doesn't contain my brand. It's not what I need. And in order to create something with value, you need to have something which is very controllable, predictable, follow your brand, follow your style. You develop a game. This is what you need. You have a brand. This is your color. You do that for e-commerce. You cannot change even half a tone on the product. And I think that sometimes with the technology, no, there's a great technology, use that, that's okay. And we don't see this. This is one. Second, I think that we are in the very high in the hype cycle, and soon people will understand that it will happen, but it will take more time. And there are more things that you need to do before full adoption. And I think that this is where we come. In 2007, I was in my first conference in computer science, and the first lecture was on autonomous driving. And I was absolutely sure that my daughter will never need to have a license, a driving license. They are 15. They're going to have a driving license. It's not that easy. It will take time. Companies need to invest resources to create amazing product, but it will take time.
So what are the main objections to when you're knocking on somebody's door? I mean, where are you finding resistance to, we're going to keep you out of the weeds and keep you safe? I mean, do they see that as the primary hurdle they need to clear? Is that kind of, I don't know, level of what would it be? Not compliance, but I guess full licensing and accountability. What are folks looking for?
So again, license and accountability, it's only the open to the door to start the discussion. Then you need to talk all of the rest of the discussion. Where is the value? How are you going to do that? Some people are not ready. We call it AI Curist. They go to the country meeting. They say, yes, we must do something with AI. And then we ask them, can you send us the presentation of the use cases that you want to solve? If they send the presentation, we continue the discussion. If not, we will call them 3 months from today. They are not ready.
Right.
Then there is a lot of very strong voices in the industry that I will try to choose my word here carefully. There are there are several very strong voices of in the industry that try to convince you that A, it's not important, legal compliance responsible. B, they shift the discussion to something else. So they will start the discussion about responsible AI, and before you notice, they're talking about safety. No, safety is another topic. Don't confuse the audience. And because of money at the end of the day, they will try to drive the conversation to someplace else. So one of the CEO of one of the companies that you mentioned, I didn't, said that he doesn't have enough evidence that copyright is important to the user, and then he has a flop. Then he needs to do something.
Interesting. I don't. Yeah.
And I will add another thing about it. People fail to understand that because that AI is considered as amazing, black magic. I don't know what is going on there. People need to build trust with the system. They need to trust the system. It's super important. There are so many small tricks that all of us doing to create that it will be trustworthy. And once you break this trust, it's really hard to recover. Really hard to recover. I need to know that I can trust the AI system. I need to know that it's work for me and not for someone else. That it will not take me out of my business, that I will left out with no job because of that. And when you are too aggressive, it's a problem.
Yeah, so I'm old enough to remember. I went through, actually old enough as an adult. I went through the PC revolution, where we went from analog to digital, and all of my albums I bought all over again as CDs. We went through the internet revolution, where we went from, let's say it's from brick and mortar to e-commerce, basically moving transactions from kind of interpersonal to virtual, effectively. And we've had other kind of miniature ones of these. Those are the two big ones. But then mobility, I think, is a miniature revolution, and cloud, I think, is another effective revolution. But I've never seen anything, and I've seen it all. I've never seen anything like this. It is black magic, to a certain degree.
It's just enough.
It's truly, it's shocking technology in that it isn't trying to make things more convenient anymore. It's literally trying to replace functional elements of people. And that's the big difference to me. And so I'm curious where you come down on all this and how you see it. I mean, do you see it as a hype cycle, and that this is just another thing, or do you see this as a more of a seismic shift of human behavior?
No, it's a hype, but it's undoubtedly shift the human behavior. It's a huge revolution. The fact that it's a hype doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's just two different elements. Look, at the end of the day, technology, any type of technology, is about automation. It's automate something. So you mentioned the two major revolution of the automation of data that was before this technology. Copy stuff, printing machine, put it on the album, on the CD. This is copy, basically. And then the automation is how I can copy data. And then internet, mobility. It's all how can I distribute data. And now it's another revolution. much stronger of how I can generate data. The same like the internet changed everything we know. And in 1997, no one really thought about working from home and having this interview from a distance and e-commerce and Airbnb. No one thought about that. We were limited in the way we thought about data, and we didn't think about distribution of data as we think today. That will happen again with generating data. It will replace some stuff, it will change some stuff, but at the end of the day, it will create something new, much, much faster and stronger. And this is the reason why it must be responsible, by the way.
In the end, I mean, there are so many things that went away during those other cycles, and companies that went away because they refused to recognize the moment. And this is where I think it's fascinating. You won't be able to sleep on it for very long. I mean, the companies that you're saying aren't ready for it, they can't maintain that posture for long. They're going to have to at some point get ready for it. So how would you suggest they do that?
Find, as always, as you implement AI, find one use case, significant use case, take that as a pilot, and then after you have the skill to do the first use case, think about the rest. The worst thing that you can do is to put it in the innovation department. That means you don't want to do it. It's like a killer in most cases because it's not part of your main business, main day-to-day. If it's there, it's not for where everybody belongs to. And find the right partner. The right partner is not necessarily the larger partner. The larger partner, they have different agenda, by the way. You should be aware of that they have a different agenda. This is a good place to start.
So, this is the other irony of this particular revolution is that the people, I think, who thought they would be safest from it are going to be the ones who are most hurt by it fastest. And it isn't a matter of levels of education. It isn't a matter of function. Well, it actually is a matter of function. So let's talk about your use case, for example. So
you're talking about developers and AI researchers, of course. That will be the one that have my impact for this revolution.
It baffles me, but I was having this conversation in another podcast around the idea that junior developers may go away. I mean, you may not need junior developers anymore, or QA, or it won't take long. Let's face it, that's going away because there's really only one right answer in the end when you're coding. It's the answer that, well,
you need less, and they will be much more effective, and they will be much smarter. I started the first language that I wrote was C++. I actually need to manage the memory of, it's unheardable today to manage the memory of the computer. Why I should do that? It's stupid. I don't need to do that. And then I moved to Python, and I told the guy that worked with me that I feel that the computer understands me when I write in Python. So now it's even harder. But it's true to everyone, to designer, this is what you ask, to content writer, to developers, to AI team. The only one that are really in problem is AI researcher, which will not have access to this technology because this is, in a way, not fair game. All the rest, they need to adapt.
Well, so what happens? So you started, I mean, you're a good example of somebody who started where everybody starts, at the bottom. You were, a coder, and you worked your way up, and now here you are, CEO and founder of an AI startup. And what happens when what happens when that bottom layer goes away? I mean, where are people going to get their rung on the ladder if the rungs are gone and never coming back? I struggle with this because how do you build the next generation like you to then succeed on the way up if you can never get your first job?
Yeah. And here we go again to Noah Harari and other philosophers that talk about this major shift in society. It's not the bottom line that disappears. It's the middle that disappears. The top will, the bottom that tag thing and do, repeatable thing will stay, and then the jump need to be much higher. It's a real issue. It's a real problem. So I think that part of that is the accessibility for this technology. Here we go back to the open, why I think that it's so important. Education is so important. I think that you need to be much more skilled, equipped with more skills, with more discipline in order to succeed in the new world. So it's not enough to be an algorithm. You also need to be engineers. It's not enough to be engineers. You also need to understand the supercomputing. It's not enough. You need to, it's a problem. I think that someone will need to solve what all of these people are going to do.
So I think we're in agreement that this is we're just in kind of 1.0. If you ask me, I know it's 4.0 for GPT, but ultimately, I think for humans, this is AI 1.0 in terms of their understanding of what is coming. And it's going to be relentless. It's not going to stop, much like, the internet didn't stop and eventually organizations just went away because they couldn't adapt to it. What do you tell, maybe 15-year-old twins or, I have a couple of kids who are out into the work world now, and another one just going to college and undeclared as a major. What do you tell, what would you tell your kids in terms of starting to think about how they should be thinking about this? I mean, there is a lot of opportunity for humans. It isn't always STEM and science and technology. How do you think about it? And what kind of advice would you offer up?
I think that this dynamic of you need to be more educated, you need to be more skilled, maybe not formal education, but more skills, and is something that we see in the last few decades. It's not new. I read somewhere that out of 100 companies that was in the Nasdaq in 1900, only 30 remain in 2000. So we have this feeling that it's stable, but it's not. The thing is that become much faster, much faster, and then as it becomes faster, it's harder for us to adopt. I think that as wider as your perspective can help. We are moving to New Jersey, and part of the reason that we are moving to Jersey is, of course, my job, that I need to be in New York, blah blah blah. But it's also that because we believe that it's important for the girls to understand different culture, different skills. It's another way to do that. Don't focus on one major. Have several. You don't have the confidence of what will disappear, right? And I think that we more same at the same age. I think that the young people today are much more focused than we are. They know what they want. They understand the situation. They plan ahead. I interview some kids. He's going to join the company in October, but he wants to secure it now because he's doing all of his the market research before, and he knows what to do. He has a plan for the next 10 years. I didn't have a plan for 10 months. He has a plan for 10 years.
So let's talk about your life plan, because we all sometimes. I know in my case, I was in politics for the first 10 years of my career, and then actually working on a political project to kind of reinvent the unemployment offices in the state of Massachusetts in the 1990s. Our consultant said, "Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to use this thing called the internet, and we're going to build this thing called a job bank, and we're going to put it all on these computer terminals, and people are going to be able to upload their resumes, and and have a talent bank, and we're going to match them all together. And this was 1995. And I thought, say that again.
Amazing.
And then they were like, oh, you got to download this thing called Netscape Navigator, and you'll see what this is all about. And after kind of, being completely clueless and realizing what I was being, informed on, I said, all right, I'm leaving politics. I'm teaching myself. I taught myself HTML and took a job as a web developer. They should never have hired me. I was not really qualified at all, but I was the only one of several few people who knew HTML. I wasn't a very good web developer, but that got me into technology. I'm curious kind of how you found your way into the technology track.
Before I answer that, I want to ask you why you left politics, and you answer that because you thought that being a web developer is a good idea. If there is something that I think that it's really important, and a lot of people are not going to that direction, is to be politics. We need really no. Think about it.
There's no money in it. Well, actually, back in those days, there wasn't any money. I guess probably now there's a lot of money in it, but
there are some illegal ways.
I was getting married, and I needed to make real money.
No, because it's a major shift of how society is going to be organized, and you see that in so many aspects. And I wish that really talented people will go and invest their talent of how to do that in the right way. If there is something that I'm a little bit sorry is that I'm a geek. I knew that I'm going to learn math in the university when I was in the first grade. I said that to the teacher. I thought that it's amazing. I thought that this is where you can find the truth. And I also like creative. I like to paint. I like to picture. I like a nice thing. So it's kind of a natural marriage between math and creative to do Ph.D. in computer vision. And it goes from there, basically.
Do you remember any forks in the road, kind of similar to me, where I kind of saw an opportunity that was so obvious to me that my path, even though I was considered successful, there was no way I could stay on that path with this other path so obvious to me that it emerged, and I made a conscious decision to leave this career path I was on. I mean, do you remember kind of making those kind of decisions, taking a job or not taking a job, or moving or not moving, or I'm curious.
So actually, I can tell you about two stories. The first one is when I graduate my PhD and I got a postdoc position in Berkeley. And then after 3 months of, thinking, I sent an email and said, I'm not going to stay in academia. It's not for me. And I left. So probably it was a completely different path if I would choose that.
And why did you decide that? Why was it not for you?
I felt that it's a one-dimensional job. I felt that you need to create something. I like teach, I like academia, I like to research, but I feel that like you can do the real thing. You know what I mean? You cannot build something. I am a builder. I want to build something. I don't just to give idea in paper that someone else might or might not build out of it. So that was the first term. And the second one is related to generative AI, actually. So the ultimate goal is to get the visual that you want, right? This is why I started with this startup. That when you create a presentation and you have an image that you want, you will not have this white side on the screen, that it will be for the entire slide. And I tried to do something during my PhD, and I worked for Google for a while. It was too early, extremely too early to do that. And in 2014, I saw the first GAN paper of generative AI, and immediately I knew that, okay, we're here. I just need to wait to the right timing, but this is what I'm going to do. And this is when I saw the Ian Goodfriend, the original paper from computer vision GAN. So that made me the decision.
So when you begin to build, and you're building your business now, and you're gonna move your family and throw yourself into this, obviously. And you start to recruit. As you mentioned, you've started to hire folks. And how do you think about the culture? How do you think about building a culture for an organization? What is important to you as you start to think about maybe the organizations you've worked for in the past and trying to project that onto the organization you're building now?
Bria is a 4-year-old startup. We're already 40 people. So we didn't start this year. We started early before the pandemic. I think that, and I'm sure that you heard that before, culture is a strategy for breakfast. You need to create the right culture, and not only the right culture, it's the right culture for you and for the business that you want to build. And if you want to create a business like this one, you need people that are really smart, really innovative, really believe that this is the right thing to do, the responsible element. They need to be engaged. And I think that team is probably the most important thing that you can do when your company is less than, 400 or 500 people. After that, it's different. But until you get there, the 500, 600, 100 million ARR, team. It's the only thing that's important. How you empower your C-level, how you build a professional growth for each one of the member of the team, how you make sure that everyone is great and you don't... sometimes people are not strong enough of how it's critical that the team will be excellent, amazing team.
How do you balance performance with personality? So there's, everybody has a little bit of both, right? Some people are, as we all know, remarkable producers, performers, but can be difficult. And sometimes that's a difficult impact on culture and coworkers. Versus, folks who are clearly conscientious and always kind of positive and willing to go the extra mile, but may not have the same level of innate horsepower. I mean, how do you think about that, and how do you balance that?
Have you heard about the beer criteria?
No.
Don't hire someone that you don't want to have a beer with him at the after work.
Oh, I have heard that. Yes. Yeah.
Simple. It's very simple. The fact that someone is a genius.
But you can't hire somebody who that's the only thing about them that's a good thing. Is that they're great to go drinking with.
A different type of business. No, again, you need to find these people that are smart, that creative, that engage. They don't need to be, not all of them need to be senior. You need to have a good balance between seniority. You need to have a good balance between a lot of things, gender if you can. But at the end of the day, there is IQ and EQ. And if you hire someone with a very low EQ, it will not work. At the long run, it will not work. The only place that I'm not super convinced that I will follow this rule is in the account manager, businessmen, salespeople, which they are kind of in many cases
they come with some EQ deficiencies, or maybe too much EQ. I don't know. I used to be a sales guy. That's where I ended up after everybody realized I couldn't code HTML very well. I became a tech sales guy.
And I must say that even the marketing, even salespeople, I will go and have beer with all of them. So I know that some people say that it's not that important for sales. I think that's important to everyone in the organization, especially when you are a relatively small organization. Everyone is count.
So do you have? So I'm not familiar with how you're organized. Is it 100% virtual? Do you have a kind of a home office? Do you have folks coming to the office in a hybrid situation? How are you thinking about it post-pandemic?
So we have two offices, one in New York, Manhattan, and the second one is in Tel Aviv.
Yep.
And we ask people to come to the office twice or three times a week. In Israel, people tend to come sometimes more because it's easier. It's short-term distance, but we ask people to come. We do have some work that are hybrid, that are working from home, because I have someone in California. You cannot come to the office, unfortunately.
Is it different since the pandemic? Is that simply the difference between New York and Tel Aviv? Is that simply a matter of geography, or do you see different culture in the United States versus in Israel?
Yeah, I think that it's a culture a little bit. I think that in Israel, people are more easy to come to the office. They need this environment, and I think that it's more important to in general to people in Tel Aviv to have some colleagues that they see. And I feel that in the US, also by knowing some other organization, it's maybe less strong than in Israel. I think it's a culture thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you're probably right, and I also think that we, particularly in this moment in time, in this AI moment, that the worst place that you could be working from is from home. that you should be in, because you're missing, as a remote worker, you're missing so much indirect information that's being shared, and you're just not getting the same cultural connections in kind of a low wave kind of level, but just the higher communication of direction for the company, what people are thinking, having inputs, building that kind of yeah. It's I don't know. How do you feel about that? I mean, where do you come down in the? I mean, I appreciate that there's not much you can do about it necessarily when you want somebody and they just are kind of level set on being remote or hybrid. But how do you feel about it? I mean, what do you think people get out of coming to the office?
I think that the junior people, but people that they don't have a massive experience of work before pandemic. They don't really understand the meaning of networking, the subtext messaging that you sometimes have in the office, the fact that the manager sees, oh, I need you to do something. I think that they are underestimate how important it is. And if I can give advice to junior people, go to the office. You don't need to go every day, but twice a week, 3 times a week, it's so important. At the end of the day, you will have more opportunity because of that. There is a reason why people go from villages to the cities, because in cities, everything is happening in cities. Everything happens in the office. So this is for people that can come for the office. What we try to do for people that are working from a distance is to bring them to the office, either to Tel Aviv or to New York, to give them this ability to meet everyone, to understand what is going on. It's hard, but it's important.
Oh, I am 100% in agreement, and I also think, particularly using your kind of younger employee example, that the things you learn just in terms of interpersonal skills, which if you're coming out of college within the last couple of years, you didn't even get that in college. Which is one of the places where you're, in theory, thrown into the mix and getting that sort of interaction. But having to deal with older colleagues more senior than you, understanding the kind of dynamic of small talk and adding value. I couldn't agree with you more on that front. And then the senior people, honestly, I think they're selling themselves short, or the organization a little bit short, in that the only thing they're providing for value is their work and not their mentorship and guidance and that sort of ancillary, I don't know, benefit.
I have a question that I'm asking. I have several questions that I'm asking every interview. And one of them, I ask a developer, I'm asking him to think about someone that worked in the past and is very, very senior. Like someone that you work with in the past, have it in mind. Why do you think that he's the one that you choose? And the reason that I'm asking this question is because I want to see how they consider seniority. And if they will say, well, he teach me a lot, then the guy that I interview is senior. If you say he's doing a great architecture, one level below. If he's saying he put a very readable remarks on the code, one level below. I think that the seniority is training, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also was just having a conversation with somebody the other day about what they called reverse mentoring, where there are some senior folks now that just are too far removed from this particular moment, and they can't see it because they just can't relate to what's happening at kind of the molecular level, and that the younger people who are privy to all that's possible and are in the code knee deep, they actually can be a benefit in that relationship in the opposite way by providing what is called reverse mentorship, but I don't think the senior person would see it that way. But it's reverse information transfer, if you will.
Yeah, because seniority is not necessarily a question of age. And if we're going back to your question of how to make sure that the kids will stay, what is the advice that you want to give them? Stay relevant. Stay relevant. This is one of the things that it's really hard to do for kids and also for people that working as a developers in the last 25 years. Dude, C++, we don't need that anymore. You need to involve. It's tough. The speed is much faster.
Well, it's an amazing time, and the speed is remarkable. And congratulations for being in the middle of all this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's great that you're building an organization and a business around this moment. Because let's face it, this is going to be the most interesting industry and technology for the next 3 decades. And everybody is going to eventually have to organize themselves around what's about to happen. And so we'll be continuing to track all that you're up to. And I'd love to have you on again and have another conversation in the future. But until then, Yair, thanks very much for the time today, and best of luck going forward with Bria.ai.
Very, very much. It was super interesting.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today.